Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Mattis, General Dunford, thank you for your service as a son of a Marine from the 158th Rifle Company from Billings, Montana. My dad's very proud that I get to be in the same room with both of you and thankful for your leadership and service to our country, truly. Secretary Mattis, I want to welcome you especially as your first hearing as SecDef, and I want to invite you to come out to Montana and visit Malmstrom Air Force Base in Great Falls. You'll see firsthand the hard work our airmen are doing to keep the Minuteman III at the ready. We're here today to discuss the state of our military's readiness, which many agree has been neglected over the past 8 years. I'm pleased to see President Trump's budget submissions have challenged the status quo and have caused us to refocus on what matters the most, and that's keeping Americans safe. Secretary Mattis, as you know, Malmstrom Air Force Base in Great Falls, Montana is home to 1/3 of our nation's ICBMs. Most of our current Minuteman III missiles have been in service for almost 50 years. While airmen have diligently maintained this aging system, we must field a modern ground-based strategic deterrent in order to meet 21st century strategic challenges. Some argue that modernizing our nuclear arsenal is too expensive, but as the CBO has pointed out, the entire nuclear triad accounts for just 6% of our total 10-year budget for our national defense. Secretary Mattis, how valuable do you consider a fully modern land-based nuclear deterrent in your arsenal to keep Americans safe?
Senator, the need for a nuclear deterrent to ensure those weapons are never used requires a triad. To determine what level a triad must be at, we have a nuclear posture review that's getting underway. But I would tell you that the land-based leg of the triad, the intercontinental ballistic missile, is a very sobering reminder to any enemy that would choose to test us that we could soak up an awful lot of their nuclear weapons in order to take out a single one of those silos. And as a result, it is a stabilizing influence to have the ICBM force fully capable in its deterrent role.
One of my favorite commander coins comes from Malmstrom, and it says, "Scaring the hell out of America's enemies since 1962." Which, I'm proud of the work that they do to keep the world safe. Continuing on nuclear deterrence, I'm concerned that the Air Force is no closer to replacing our Vietnam-era Hueys for missile field security response than it was when I met with Secretary James last year. As a result, our airmen will operate inadequate equipment yet another year. Secretary Mattis, if the Air Force is given the $1.8 billion increase you requested for aircraft procurement, when might we expect to see a new and more capable helicopter deployed to our missile fields?
Sir, I anticipate that the Vietnam-era Hueys will be gone and replaced by around 2021. That's my goal right now. I've got to get into the budget in detail and look at where we can, what years we can get what amounts of money. But I recognize that the security forces need the proper helicopters. The force in the field needs the proper helicopters. And the Huey's done a good job, but it's time for it to go.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Secretary. I want to shift and talk about our Guard and Reserve training. As we look to modernize many of our aging weapons, we want to make sure we don't neglect the readiness of our military families. Guardsmen and reservists often travel hundreds of miles to and from their duty locations every month. Most are not reimbursed for the costs they incur and are limited as to what they can claim as business-related expenses. I think that's flat out wrong. Service members should not be taxed on money they spend to subsidize their own training. This afternoon, I'll be introducing the Tax Relief for Guard and Reserve Training Act, which will allow guardsmen and reservists to deduct travel expenses, including meals and lodging, to ensure they aren't penalized for serving their country. General Dunford, can you speak to the unique challenges that guardsmen and reservists face on drill weekends that you observed during your 40 years in uniform?
Senator, I can, you know, obviously not personally. My brother did spend 20 years in the reserves. I had an opportunity to see him, and obviously the men and women that I visit with routinely. And they do have a unique challenge. I even tell them when I'm speaking to them, I said, you know, I only have one thing I have to worry about, which is being a full-time active duty. You've got to be a soldier, sailor, airman, Marine, whatever you're doing in your personal life, and you're trying to balance the family. So I think when they give up a week, 2 weeks, a month, when they go on deployment for a year and they set aside their civilian employment, I think they do have some unique challenges, and I appreciate your interest in making sure that we can mitigate some of the consequences of those challenges.
Great. Thank you, General.